Greetings and blessings. Welcome to War in Heaven. This episode is called The Latter Rain because we're in the latter part of the summer when the wheat harvest would come. And the 29th of the fourth month, going into the new moon of July the 20th, is the correct counts for what we call Pentecost. There's actually a number of weekly counts. The first is the barley count, and the second is the Pentecost with the wheat, and then there's oil and water. But that's another matter. Hi. I feel like we need to give some clarification and tie all this together because there's quite a bit of interest being generated right now about this high watch date that we're sitting on the edge of. And I've already produced one or two videos on this already, and I'm going to try to tie it all together because we go back, we can go all the way back to September of 2017 for one of our infallible proofs. See, the thing is, all of this, what's this all about? And I'm going to get into this. And by the way, I like short videos. I don't really like long ones, and I hope you feel the same way. So I'm going to be concise and short and go through this in a way that will cover the information I think that we want to cover and lend better understanding with the objectives in mind. But the objectives really are to observe the principles of our transformation, observe the principles of our deliverance, of our restoration, of our redemption, and to manifest that during our days while we're breathing in these meat suits until mortality puts on immortality and corruption puts on incorruption, correct? In the scriptures it says, without faith it is impossible to please him. And yet our Creator, Abba, gives us these things, a number of things. He gives us a number of checkpoints for us to take and be inspired on faith with. First one is in the early part of Romans where it says, for the things of the Creator Elohim are clearly seen by the things that are made, so that we all are without excuse. People say, oh, well, if God would come down in a chariot or give me some dreams, I'd believe then. Or I think maybe we didn't evolve, or I don't think I believe that we were dropped here by aliens anymore. Well, that's good, that's impresses him, but he wants a little higher bar than that, and we should hold ourselves to a higher bar too. So the creation itself is one testimony of 10,000 miracles, the land of 10,000 miracles per second that we live in. Another great sign of our believing, to inspire believing, is there shall be no sign given but that which was the sign of Jonah, and ultimately was with the resurrection. And it says he showed himself alive to his disciples by many infallible proofs. Could you imagine seeing those infallible proofs? We've got a lot of infallible proofs now with the creation, and the precision of the word, the accuracy of the word, the mathematical exactness and scientific precision of the word is greatly inspiring. But there's another principle involved. And it says, if they receive, it says, it's impossible to please God without believing. And it says, we're transformed by believing, which is energized by love. Well, your believing is not activated, unless you can memorize a math test. You understand that logic, but it's not meaningful to you. If you don't love the truth, believing is energized by love. So loving the truth, it says, they received not the love of the truth that they might be made whole, complete, saved. It's part of the symmetry of the way our genetics and consciousness work, that things which we treasure are things which we manifest. If you want to manifest something big, you've got to have big questions so that you have big answers. So loving the truth. Little questions don't produce little answers. They're going to produce little answers, not big answers. So we have to care about that first great principle about if you believe in your heart that God raised Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, from the dead, then thou can be made safe. Well, why is that way? What's the magic wand of that? The magic of that, the power of that, is that when you love the truth and you love the answer for why is this death thing coming? And what happens when we die? And why is there evil? These big questions generate big answers. So the first principle was to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so by loving the truth, God is truth, you can actually have an answer. If you don't care about truth, think it not really sure it exists, or if it's relevant, or if you're a postmodernist and it's an existential world for you, coming to deliverance is going to be hard. Anyway, with that in mind, the symmetry of this time period that we're going into here all starts back with the Revelation 12 sign. There's lots of videos on that. You can go to my Facebook page, my YouTube page, and you'll find, and Scotty Clark's page, that talk about this Revelation 12 sign. It was one time in history. Can't go into it again. If that's not familiar to you, please do yourself a big favor and learn about it. It's quite inspiring. Also about that, I didn't mention the last time about the conception comet that appeared 9 months before the Revelation 12 sign. If you go to my Facebook page, just type in the search bar conception comet, you'll come to the video on that. At any rate, that was an 84-day time period. Earlier this year, we had another 84-day time period that began with the announcement of the peace deal, which I covered in the earlier video, that divides Jerusalem, and ends on the day of the new moon, which was believed to be the day of the ascension. And of course, that didn't happen. And then we came to the next new moon on May the 22nd, which was a 40-day wait from the resurrection day to that next new moon, which could have fulfilled a 40-day time period. At any rate, with that in mind, we come to the next, where we are right now. And so we start back with the day of the resurrection, or the first day of the third day of the third day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and we count 50 days forward, which is where we were on the last slide. We get to the feast of the first fruits, the barley festival, and then we have another 50-day count. You can go to the creationcalendar.com, and there's a complete explanation of how this works. But it's the summer Pentecost, when the wheat is white. There's too much evidence that this is when Pentecost is, on July 20th, on the new moon. So we're watching this wonderful day coming here, and as we're doing that, as it kind of ties into everything that we just went through on the previous slide and the previous video, that, okay, this was the natural extension, this watch date. And at the same time, we're watching for imminently this peace deal, the dividing of Jerusalem, and possible war to break out between the Muslim nations and the nation of Israel, which is another time, ironically, when a trumpet is blown. There's 3 or 4 times when trumpets are blown: every new moon, the Feast of Trumpets, and when a war is broken out. And there's a couple others, but those are the primary ones. So but the thing is, in looking at being a watcher, see, the scriptures command us to watch. There's too many parables about the virgins with their lamps and the weddings and ceremonies, and that we're supposed to watch for the master to come. And it says, he who has this hope in himself purifies himself. So there's a benefit. Being purified is a good thing, right? So in the eschatology, the prophetic books, there are day counts mentioned, and God doesn't put things in there without a reason. And so there's 25 50-day counts. There's a number of 12 60-day counts, a 12 90-day count. 7 years, or 2,520 days, is 12 times 3 is 36, times 30 is 2520, or 2 1260s, which brings us to that famed midpoint in prophecy. There's also a 1335-day count and a 1290 count. And just for mathematical purposes, I note that 1260 plus 75 and 1260 plus 30 equal the 1335 and the 1290. With that in mind, all those days, and keeping this short and simple, and I want you to be given the opportunity to care and to search on your own and to learn, but I'm trying to tie these together for you, that if you count from this possible prophetic fulfillment here of the rapture, the harpazo, the snatching, the rescuing of us, as in the days of Noah, when the flood comes and all the Nephilim and corrupted seed are challenged, wiped out, etc. There's many archetypes. That's just one. But God's people were pulled out just as they were at the time of the original Passover and when they were pulled out of Egypt. And the Red Sea crossed, right? So God's always trying to rescue his people out from trouble. And, as we all know, there's a lot of evil in the world, a lot of beauty in the world, a lot of evil too. So this is all about cleaning it up, this eschatology period coming ahead, the 7 years, the tribulation, the end times that precede the actual 1,000 years. Not the end is near. The 1,000-year reign is near. We got a little interruption, possibly, of 7 years in advance of that. But at any rate, it was interesting to note that how the symmetries came together. Now, there's other symmetries besides this one that tie in all these dates and make some potential sense out of it. But I'm going to show you this one real quick so you can see why when we come back to this high watch date that's coming up here in just a number of days, it's a time to, sanctify the Creator, Yahweh, in your heart and be purified, right? He who has this open himself purifies himself. And it may come and go, but we may come and we may go too. But the great reality is it will happen someday. Whether it's this one high watch date or another one, or somewhere down the road, or on any other random day, so be it. And meanwhile, faithful watchers watch, right? That's what we do. So there were 75 days, I noticed, from July the 20th to October 2nd. October 2nd on the Jewish calendar is the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot. And it's a fall festival. Since the spring festivals have all pretty well been fulfilled, except maybe this last second fulfillment on Pentecost, here we're looking at now with our possible of our seed growing into a tree, taking fulfillment. We got sealed with the Holy Spirit, the seed, incorruptible seed, with the promise, but we get it manifested into our new being, our supra-angelic original Son of Man. The first Adam and the second Adam were, reigning over the adversary, and certainly in glory and beauty and honor and dignity under the Heavenly Father. That's the end game. But at any rate, that 75 days, I realized added up really nicely to 1260 plus 75. So I added 1260, and by gosh, it got us to the 7-year midpoint. I'm going to show you really quick here what those two dates look like. By the way, from July the 20th, which is this upcoming new moon, to September 2nd, like I mentioned to you, it was 70 days. So when we will go forward 1,260 days, it takes us to March the 15th of 2024. And on that day, Venus and Aquarius, Venus is in Aquarius, and Saturn is Hashatan, or Saturn, or Satan in biblical astronomy. And Mars is Michael the Archangel. So whenever Michael's near you, kind of think of war and defense and protection and aggression for the purposes of God. Venus represents the Messiah, the bright morning star. And the overall constellation in biblical astronomy, by the star names in every language, before they were corrupted later by Rome and in Latin and so forth, but their Aramaic names, their Hebrew names, their Babylonian names are all indicating this is a time of wrath. This is pouring out of wrath, pouring out of judgment, which matches the prophecies of the pouring out of the vials, of the wrath, of the judgment, of the consequences, of the deserved ends for pedophiles and murderers and people that don't love God and don't love truth and don't seek to be accountable to their the responsibilities incumbent upon each man to well, like it says, they're without excuse. So that kind of, but God is just and God is merciful. We're not going to go into that right now. So this is on the exact days. But 6 days later, on the 21st, there's a conjunction. So it's pointing us to the exact point. I'm going to come back to show you that midpoint of that 7-year time period. Oops. There we go. Okay. So right at this point, Venus and Saturn are in conjunction, a clash between the forces of darkness and the forces of light in this stream. Gosh darn it. I thought I had that saved there. In this stream, they were forced into clashing, and there's Mars in the constellation too, supporting. So it's just kind of an interesting punctuation mark to this. Wow, it's going back. Anyway, to this this count. So you get to that mid-year point when there's so many things said to happen. This is a period of relative peace compared to what starts here. That first 3.5 years is still the tribulation. The symmetry matches because another 1,260 days takes you to a point in the Jewish calendar, which is a total of 2,520 days, plus the initial 75-day wait here, this kiss at the beginning, takes us to this point here, which is the 25th of Elul, the month of Elul, or August 27th on our calendar. And that's when the temple wall was finally completed in the book of Nehemiah. And so that was a very fitting completion signature point. That day was recorded, and that's the date that this ends on our calendar today. These two, this beginning here, this count on the 25th of Sukkot, excuse me, on the 2nd of October, the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, is a conjunction between Venus and Regulus, which I'm going to show you also. Another marker says there'll be signs in heaven. So once again, that completes a 7-year time period. And also, that's 2,550 days, which is another day that's, when you add another 30 days onto the end of that. Because 1260 plus 30 days is 1290, and that's a prophetic time period. And it says that there'll be a satisfying event, and the satisfying event is the completion of that whole period of the wrath, part of which is the 7 years. We know there's other things that are mentioned in the book of Revelation besides the 7 years, such as the sign in the heavens of the Revelation 12 sign, which we just covered in the earlier video and on that prior slide. So this entire time period that started probably in 2017, as far as we know, and this, of course, some people say we've been in the end times since the beginning of when the Messiah came. But the specific prophetic time period is highlighted and certainly deeply focused on this time count here. So the 1,335 days are fulfilled because it takes us right to that midpoint. The 1,260 days are fulfilled because it takes us from this other starting point here, which is the first day of Tabernacles, the Feast of Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, which is also punctuated with the Venus-Regulus conjunction. And the 1290 is completed because it takes us to this date, as well as the 2550 takes us from the Feast of Tabernacles to this point. So everything fit together perfectly. Doesn't prove that this is the beginning or that this will be what we hope it would be, but it isn't certainly an interesting symmetry to watch, right? With everything that's happening on the ground in the world, can you imagine how that would progress if Trump and others and all of us, many of us, were disappeared? There'd be a lot of sorrow, and there'd be a lot of free reign. Boy, they would come after anybody that was on the fence that was left. And at this end point here, this day on September 24th of 2027, which is 7 years and 30 days from the 7 years covered here, which is 50 days from this October the 2nd, which is 1335 plus 12, 90 days from this July 20 new moon Pentecost. This is the Shemini Atzeret is the last great day of the last great feast. And it's in that year, September 24th. And it's the last fall festival. What very perfect fitting end to this time period count. So I already showed you this. And I already showed you this one. And I showed you how it started on the midpoint. And this is verification to you that the Feast of Tabernacles is on October the 20th. It's October the 2nd this year, which is 75 days after this July 20th new moon that's coming up, which is our hopeful day, right? And then this is the evidence to you that from October the 2nd of 2020, which is 75 days from this upcoming high watch date. And this is actually a high watch date too. So a number of eschatologists say this is a great day to watch. See, we're not married to a day. We're married to the reality that it's going to happen. But that actually ends up being 20 days again. So it's a 7-year count, just like I showed you, which is a beautiful, miraculous thing. Now this is a little blurry, unfortunately, but on October the 3rd of October the 2nd of this year, this is the constellation Leo, line of the tribe of Judah. All the 12 constellations are all prophetic. They're all messianic. It all got corrupted, just like everything else gets corrupted by the adversary, by the world. It gets put in spells and words and ideas and traditions of men and religion and sin and Jesus, and pretty soon it's dumbed down so much that you've lost the marvelous, miraculous truths underneath of it. Don't get me wrong, Jesus is a good word, but religion and tradition are spells that can dumb us down, as well as all forms of darkness. The adversary is a master at poisoning the wells for faithful seekers, and they say, oh, well, you got the Pope and the pedophile, I'm done with that, I don't want anything to do with it, and which is very hurtful. But this is like a little bit of the Bethlehem star here, because when in 3 BC, there was a similar conjunction between Jupiter and Regulus, not Venus and Regulus. And so this is Venus and Regulus on October the 2nd, Sukkot, 75 days after this July 20th Pentecost date. So, gosh, I think that's everything. And I hope that clears up and ties together, synthesizes those two different color blue charts that I had. So I'm going to end with a picture of that original. Now, again, if you have questions, you can text me or email me. You can text me. You can message me on Messenger or on my YouTube here. Leave a message. And this is the one we've transited to. This is the one we were working on back a couple of months ago. And anyway, I'm going to just say sign out, over and out, and have a great holiday and a great high watch. Aloha.